This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file. Abbott Diabetes Care. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
Hello and welcome into the Birds of the Round Table for yet another Victory Tuesday celebration edition of the show. The Eagles topple the Pittsburgh Steelers. Great game. One of the most fun games, I think, of the season for me, to see them do what they did to such a highly vaunted defense. And we're going to break it all down. So welcome into the show. I am your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter at Shane Haff NFL. Joined by 2/3 of the crew tonight. We'll start at the top here. It is Dibes. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Check out his sweet Eagles stocking hat. Dibes, I love that. I tried to find mine when I saw you with yours, and I don't know where it's at. I couldn't find it.
Next week for sure. But great win by the Birds. Can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out next week.
See?
I'll find it and send you a picture. Also joined by David. Give him a follow on Twitter at PHL Eagle News. David, how you doing?
Doing great, man. The Eagles have the longest win streak in franchise history at 10 games, and I think we all saw a glimpse of what the team can look like when the offense and defense play well together. And as impressive as that was, they still haven't played a perfect game yet, which has concerned the other NFL teams, but make everybody who's listening or watching this very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some crazy stuff in this game that we'll get into, but unfortunately we are missing Ryan tonight. He sent me a message and said that since Kenny Gainwell had 123 all-purpose yards, he was going to bow out tonight. So, that's not really what happened, but Ryan's unable to join us tonight. Unfortunate, because we can't razz him as much about Kenny Gainwell, but here it is. So you're stuck with the three of us tonight. Guys, let's dive into it. The Eagles win 27-13. And the game was not that close. Obviously, the Eagles kill the game with the ball. Certainly felt like they could have scored again. They also fumbled the ball twice. And so there were some short fields given to the Steelers. There was a ridiculous penalty on Reed Blankenship that led to the Steelers' touchdown. This was a dominant performance all the way around. So let's look at the offensive side of the ball first. And Dibes, I'll throw it to you. What's your top offensive takeaway from this one?
I'll take the layup. Sure. It was Jalen Hurts. The Steelers had an average passer rating allowed of 79.2, the second best mark in the NFL coming into last week. And Jalen Hurts, man, he finished the game with 125.3 passer rating, 6 passes of at least 20 yards, 4 more. of 16 or more. That performance in the second half was terrific. He was the engine of an offense that went the last 10 and a half minutes to finish the game. I think in that stretch, he was like 5 of 7 for like 70-something yards. He looked crisp. He was in command. And it was from the jump. The Steelers clearly said no to Saquon from the beginning to end and dared Jalen Hurts to beat them with his arm. And, man, they made a statement from the jump, the quick slants, the crossers. It was the most amount of targets to A.J. Brown all season. A.J. Brown was an absolute monster in contested catches. Devontae Smith on the crossers, the touchdown catch. Really great to see Jalen Hurts get Devontae Smith involved early and often. It was just a top-to-bottom terrific performance from Jalen Hurts and hopefully a sign of things to come.
Yeah, always nice to see the passing game have a game like that, especially following the somewhat turbulent week around the media. Thanks, Brandon Graham. But Eagles get back on track in the passing game there. David, what was your top offensive takeaway?
I mean, outside of Jalen Hurts, I'll go with the receivers. A.J. Brown changed his Twitter handle to a profile picture to the Joker, but there was nothing funny about his performance for the Steelers defensive backs this week, man. He finished the day with 8 catches, 110 yards, a touchdown, 1 kid and play, Selly with Jalen Hurts. He proved once again that when his number is called, there are very few receivers in the game who can take it over as well as he does. And then across the field and playing in the slot, Devontae Smith, Mr. Reliable, hauled in 11 of his 12 targets, good for another 109 yards, a touchdown. He's been amazing in the slot. He's become Jalen's favorite outlet the past couple weeks. And again, I mentioned it on the post game, but he has the nickname of Skinny Batman, but he sure does play big when he's fighting for those extra yards, man, because every time you need him to get the first down, he puts his head down and he goes out there and does it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the biggest thing for me, and Q hit on it right here, is the injury report. That's going to be a big thing to see because you had so many guys banged up in this game. Saquon got banged up. He was in and out of the game, and you end up with a lot of Kenny Gainwell in this one. And shout out to Gainwell, who played really well. But I was going to pull up 80 snaps, and let's see, where's it at? Kenny Gainwell played 31 of those 80 snaps. Kenny Gainwell played a pretty high amount of snaps. You have A.J. Brown gets his foot caught up on a pretty clear and obvious hip drop tackle there at the end of the game. And he seemed to be fine. He said he was fine later, but we'll watch that. You had Landon Dickerson leaving the game and only played like 30 snaps in the game. Tyler Steen played a lot for Landon Dickerson. Kai Becton missed a few snaps. Lane Johnson missed a few snaps. There was a lot of guys getting banged up in this one. And so the injury report's going to be critical. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the Detroit Lions to see how a season, and this sounds stupid to say given their record and the fact they're still the 1 seed if the season ends right now, but to see a season go off the rails and you see the way they've been bitten by the injury bug. And the Eagles have thankfully avoided major injuries so far, and hopefully all these guys are healthy, and hopefully as they continue to make this playoff push, they can stay healthy. You can start to see, Saquon taking more breathers as you come down the end of the season, although he shows no signs of slowing down other than getting hit in the thigh/knee with a helmet this game. Hopefully you can see Jalen Carter playing less snaps down the stretch. Johnny and I were talking today on our show that people are going to look at the snap counts and see Jalen Carter's snap count from week 15 and be like, oh, the Eagles gave him a break that week. It's like, nope, he played like 95% of the snaps. The defense was just never on the field. But hopefully the Eagles can stay healthy. They're obviously still in the pursuit of the 1 seed, and they need some help to make that happen. But hopefully staying healthy trumps all else. But Brett Eclipse chiming in with a good one here says, it's really weird how Saquon switched his jersey number to 14 mid-game last week. Kenny Gainwell had some really nice plays in this game. He's a nice guy to have as a complimentary back in your backfield.
I would love to see him average around like 10 to 15 touches these last few weeks with like a little more balance with Saquon. Not saying he should take, the majority of the snaps or touches from Saquon, but I definitely want to see a slow titration with Saquon these next few weeks. Going back to the injury bug, you could piggyback off of this and throw in Cooper DeJean. Like, he took a lot of hits on special teams, unneeded special teams. Like, they need to figure something out. He should not be returning anymore. He is too valuable to this defense. So for me, it's eliminating those little things that will go a long way come playoff time.
Yeah. David, any other offensive thoughts before we flip it over to the defense?
No, just that dominant drive. I don't know if we mentioned it, but that was just crazy. I don't think you've ever seen anything like that. The Steelers had 2 possessions in the entire second half because of the suffocating defense. I mean, with that 10-minute, 40-second, 50-second drive. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, at least from an Eagles team.
Yeah. It was the most on record for the Eagles, the 21 plays on that drive. And the 10-29 was the third longest drive over the last 24 years, I think I'm reading. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was just crazy.
21 plays, 88 yards, 10 minutes and 29 seconds. And you know what's funniest about that? They had a 22-yard pass, a 21-yard pass, and a 19-yard pass were 3 of those plays. That's, 62 of those yards in 3 plays. And then the other 18 plays were 25 yards. And they just kept the clock running. It's hilarious. It's vintage throwback. I remember in 2022, it was the Eagles get the ball in the fourth quarter with the lead and the game's just over. And Mike Tomlin played right into that with the coward's punt, which what an awful decision, by the way. Down 2 scores to punt on a 4th and 7 with 10 minutes left when the Eagles' last 2 possessions went 7 minutes and 6.5 minutes. That's an indefensible one from Tomlin. But okay, let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. And David, I'll throw it to you first. What was your top defensive takeaway?
The Eagles totaled 401 yards, and they stymied the Steelers to only 163, which is the largest disparity in all 289 games Mike Tomlin has coached in the NFL, which is just a huge statement. But I got to give it to Nolan Smith. I mean, he was everywhere. He had a huge sack with less than a minute left in the first half to kill a drive, force a long field goal. He finished the day with 4 tackles, 4 pressures, a sack, a pass defense, 2 TFLs. He disrupted the game from jump. I mean, he played 95% of the snaps, but like you mentioned, when there are only 41 of them, I don't know how impressive that is, but nevertheless, he's on the field constantly, and he does that because he plays the run just as well. He sets the edge. He brings pressure from any position. He is relentless in running down players, as I'm sure you've seen in the film breakdown, hopping over guys. I mean, he is just a relentless warrior out there. And for everybody who was wondering when he was going to turn it on, I think we're seeing it right now. And it couldn't be at a better time because that whole line is just playing in tandem. They're just great. I mean, and I know Jalen Carter's stats don't look like he did much, but he blew up the interior the entire game. I mean, there was just nowhere to go. So you have that coming up the middle, and then you have Nolan Smith on the edge and Josh Sweat on the edge. It's trouble for almost any offense in this league.
Yeah, it was truly a dominant performance, and they're so much fun to watch. I have so much more fun watching the defense this year. I've always been an offense guy, and I know I've said this before, but it's been so much fun watching the film on this defense and just seeing them play. And I mean, they were just truly dominant in this game. And Dibes, what was your top defensive takeaway?
Yeah, it was Nolan Smith to the point where, I mean, all season I do draft shows every week as I have. And, edge has been dominantly the number one position of need for the Birds during our mock drafts and things like that. And now it's starting to kind of be a question mark. That's how much Nolan Smith has turned it up. I mean, there's so many different ways to go. I think back to the post game, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, they all had great games. But I think all three levels were terrific. Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond, outstanding. The secondary, outstanding. And if I had to pick somebody, I'll go Darius Slay. Darius Slay had a really strong game, and he's kind of been quietly great all season long since the bye week, according to Jeff Kerr. Between weeks 6 and 15, he's allowed 14 receptions on 40 targets, 0 touchdowns allowed, a QB rating of 43.8 when targeted. So that's awesome, man. So shout outs to Darius Slay. I don't know how much he's got left in him. He still gets banged up seemingly every single week. If it was up to me, I'm definitely looking at CB1 or CB2 in the draft. But major shout out to Darius Slay, who keeps going.
I mean, the Eagles already have CB1 and CB2, though, Dibes.
You think so?
Oh,
You're gonna put Cooper outside?
I don't know about that. Maybe. I think Cooper. I always thought Cooper was a better fit outside than in the slot. Anyways, I had questions about the slot, and he's been great there. But I had questions about him, so he's answered those. Obviously, Brett Eclipse chiming in here says, "I'm still stuck comprehending how a defense." Heralded by 2 rookies, a guy who's never played off-ball or inside linebacker, and some previously underperforming draft picks ends up being the strong point of this team. Like, guys, we literally said, if this defense can just be average, like be the 16th best defense in the NFL, and this team's going to be really good. They're the best defense in the NFL. It's truly unbelievable. And Nolan Smith played Josh Sweat also played really well in this game. That's another position that, like, hypothetically, Bryce Huff's going to come back and bolster that a little bit in the playoffs. And I know he started slow, but he had some flashes before his snap count started getting throttled with the injuries. So hopefully he can come back and contribute as well. And you just can't say enough good things about Zach Bond. Like, the play that he made on the flea flicker, and I know it was like the biggest play of the game for the Steelers, but for him to sort out like the run pass stuff, and he starts to get depth and backpedal before the running back even tosses the ball back. And then to pick up the crosser, which is Calvin Austin, who ran a 4.32 40 and run with him vertically. It was incredible defense. And, sometimes the guy just makes a lucky catch, but that was awesome. Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith had a career high in pressures. I feel pretty comfortable saying it was Nolan Smith's best game of his career. And we saw all of this. It's funny, like, throughout the whole season, we've talked about, like, Jalen Carter is the dominant force on the defense. The run game is the dominant thing for the offense. The run game didn't work very well, and Jalen Carter had 0 pressures. And the defense probably had their best performance of the year, and the pass game had its best performance of the year. So the Eagles are finding ways to win and proving they can do it whichever way they need to.
Would you say on the postgame they had like 2 missed tackles in the game?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and one of them was a Zach Bond missed tackle, but he was like flying from the opposite hash, carrying a running back like to the opposite flat. And he gets to him at the catch point, and he hangs onto his leg long enough for like half the team to get there. I don't even really count that as a missed tackle, but it just such a fun defense to watch. It truly is. Any other thoughts on the defense before we get into our player of the games?
Is this your expectation for the defense going forward? What's your realistic expectation? And youngest defense in the NFL. What's reality here?
I've thought for a long time that like Quinyon Mitchell's finally going to have the game where he gets got.
Me too. Yeah.
And it hasn't happened. And I started to think it's just never going to happen. And feeling the same way about Cooper DeJean. And then Cooper DeJean had his game against Adam Thielen. It's like, okay, I mean, these are still rookie corners. But yeah, I think the biggest danger a team can pose to the Eagles is if they can pass out of 12 personnel. Because when you go into 12 personnel like the Steelers did and you just try to run the ball, the Eagles are going to shut you down with their 3 defensive tackle looks. If you can pass out of that 12 personnel, that's going to start to cause problems. See, the problematic teams for the Eagles are going to be a team that can get heavy and run, but they can also pass. I think that's the thing that's like the hypothetical way you beat the defense. It's kind of like the whole quick interior pressure on Tom Brady for years. Like, we can't stop the guy, but in theory that should work. Like, in theory, I think that's how you beat the Eagles defense. We'll see if there's a team that's able to do that, though.
It blows my mind that teams just do not throw towards Quinyon Mitchell. The most amount of targets he's received since week 1 is 6, and that was week 4. Since then, I mean, you're talking 1 target, 3 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets. Like, teams don't even try, and that's just such a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. David, any other thoughts on the defense before we get into player of the games?
Nope. No, I agree with everything y'all said. I think the only way that defense is going to get beat, and I think it played a big role in how the Eagles have been game planning, is if they turn the ball over a lot. If they give the opponent short fields, that's about the only way they're going to lose. And they know it, and they probably overcompensated by being a little too conservative, but they're not wrong, because I don't think there's any way another team can put up over 17 points on them without them giving them a short field.
Yeah. Brett Eclipse asked a question, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, but do we think Kingsbury will try to move Terry McLaurin away from Quinyon? That's a good one that we will get back to here in a minute. But before we do that, let's close the book on this game. Let's talk about player of the games. David, give me your player of the game from the Steelers game.
I mean, it's got to be Jalen Hurts, just for silencing everybody who was questioning the validity of the passing game. He went a perfect 8 for 8 in the first half, ended with the perfect passer rating. The problems of last year, which was their fatal flaw, was not being able to throw against the blitz. He was 8 of 11 for almost 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, I think he silenced the critics on almost everything they said he couldn't do. So I would say it has to be him. He had 3 touchdowns, two by air, 1 by land, and a broken finger that he had never mentioned to anybody throughout the week. So he threw for more yards than he did versus Carolina and Baltimore combined. So, yeah, he's my player of the game.
All right. Good choice there for sure. Dibes, where are you going to go for player of the game?
There's a lot of good ones this week. You could go Jalen Carter. I mean, it always starts up front with him in the middle. He does everything for Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith. You could go Kenny Gainwell. I mean, all 3 of his receptions were first downs and big moments. And that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go crazy. Give me Kenny Gainwell. And he's low-key had a really strong season, and we've killed him, whether that's on this show or my other show. So major shout out to Kenny Gainwell for really improving his play this season. And I hope we get more Kenny Gainwell. Sorry, Ryan, going forward these last few games. Maybe some Will Shipley as well.
There's an inverse relationship between how Kenny Gainwell plays and whether Ryan shows up for the podcast. So you're also just wishing for Ryan not to show up here is what I'm reading. Yeah.
I want him to wear that jersey. I want him to wear his Kenny Gainwell jersey, man. That'd be terrific.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot of good places you could go for player of the game. It feels silly not to take an AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, but I'm going to give mine to Nolan Smith. I think Nolan Smith, he had the best game of his career, in my opinion, and it wasn't just as a pass rusher, although he was really good as a pass rusher. He was really good in the run game, too, like he normally is. So give me Kenny Gainwell. I'm reading the chat.
Yes.
I'm reading the chat here. Give me Nolan Smith for player of the game. So there you have it, guys. Our thoughts on the Eagles' victory over the Steelers.
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
Deck You're home with Blinds.com. La 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 la. La 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 Blinds.com. DIY or let us install. La 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 la. La 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 Blinds.com. Free design consultation. Free. Plus free samples and free shipping. Free.
Head to Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
We are going to turn the page now to a divisional matchup, and it's not that it's lost its luster, but the Eagles have all but locked in, winning the division. It's still theoretically possible for Washington to win the division if the Eagles were to lose out and Washington was to win out. But we all know that's not going to happen. But it is very important for the Eagles as they still try to pursue that number one seed. And again, the path here for the Eagles is they need a loss from both the Vikings and the Lions, who play each other in Week 18. So they need at least one of those teams to lose prior to Week 18 and to take care of business themselves. Washington, meanwhile, is fighting for a playoff berth. If the playoffs started right now, I believe they would be in, but they could very easily get out with a few losses. And so it's a big game for both teams. Let's go matchups to watch. And Dibes, I'll throw it to you first. Give me your top matchup to watch.
I'm going with the hot hand, Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat versus the Commanders O-line. Could probably throw Jalen Carter in this as well. But those are the guys that have been really turning it up a notch over these last few weeks. Washington against the Saints last week, their O-line really struggled. There were some protection issues. There were some issues with Jaden Daniels holding on the ball for too long. Tyler Bayadas was a late scratch. I'm not even going to begin to pronounce this backup center, Michael Dieter or something like that. But anyway, Jaden Daniels sacked 8 times, and right guard Sam Cosmi, who I really like a lot, gave up 4 pressures and 4 hurries. Right tackle Andrew Wiley gave up 4 pressures and 4 hurries. Brandon Coleman, the left tackle, gave up a sack and 2 pressures. And enter Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat, who have been playing lights out. Nolan Smith, as we talked about, played 95% of the snaps against the Steelers. And you look at the difference a year makes. Last year, he only had a 1 sack, a tackle for loss, 3 quarterback hits in 17 games. This year, 14 games, 5.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 10 quarterback hits. Josh Sweat has 8 sacks this year, all coming within the last 10 games, which is coincidentally some of the best Eagles football during that stretch. And, we talked about Jalen Carter and how much he's meant for those 2 guys. So we saw Vic Fangio rush 4 a lot against the Steelers. I don't expect a lot to change. It's going to be huge to get pressure on Jaden Daniels, because when he's kept clean and he has a clean pocket, his numbers are off the charts. They're really, really solid. So really important for the Eagles to get a consistent 4-man rush. And for good news for Eagles fans, the Washington O-line has given up a league worst 4.7 sacks allowed these last 3 games. So keep an eye out for Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat.
All right. Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat looking to tee off for a second week in a row. David, where are you going for your top matchup to watch?
I went with the Eagles defensive backs versus the Commanders passing offense. The Commanders have the 5th-ranked offense in the NFL and the 6th-ranked unit in points per game, and the Eagles will be countering that with the league's best defense in terms of yards allowed and a few other categories. In my opinion, they're just going to prove to be too much for the Commanders receivers of De'Ami Brown, our old friend Oz, and Terry McLaurin. Terry was angry after their last matchup. He didn't like all the talk of how the rookie shut him down. So I expect to see him playing a lot more dedicated. I just don't know how much it'll matter. Quinyon is on his way to being the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. In 14 games, he's only allowed 32 completions, only 2.25 yards after the catch, which is just insane. In 838 snaps, he hasn't allowed a touchdown. So Scary Terry, I don't think, is going to be bringing too much fear to Quinyon. He locked him down in the first game like it was a 2020 pandemic. Q played 39 coverage snaps, was only targeted once, and didn't allow any receptions. McLaurin's only reception came when he was moving around the formation in the fourth quarter. And someone in the chat asked, do you think they'll move him around? Yeah, they will. But on the other side, you have Big Play Slay, who's only allowed 14 receptions on 40 targets since week 6. I mean, he's averaging a 43.8% passer rating when they're throwing at him. So I don't know. It's going to be tough sledding. So he could go into the slot, and then you got Cooper DeJean. So I think it's going to have a very, very hard day, and I am buying into the Quinyon Mitchell stock. I do not think that McLaurin's going to be able to have a day on him like a lot of people think.
Yeah, Q chiming in says the matchup for the week is Philly fans versus the media. A lot of Philly fans on a revenge tour this week, hunting down certain media members online, but Brett Eclipse chiming in that Quinyon moved to be the odds-on favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. A second shutdown of McLaurin could seal that for him. I'm going to flip to the other side of the ball here, and let's talk Commanders' defensive backs against the Eagles' receivers. Because when this game was played the first time around, the Commanders had just made a move for Marshawn Lattimore, who didn't play in that game. And I looked at that game and I fully expected the Eagles to be able to throw the ball really well. And when you go back and watch that game, there's just a lot of times it felt like to me that the Commanders won those matchups. A.J. Brown only had 65 yards. Devontae Smith had 29 yards. And Jalen Hurts threw for 221. But it just was a struggling pass performance. And Mike Sanders still had some really good reps against A.J. Brown. They just played better against the Eagles receivers than I thought they would. Well, now Marshawn Lattimore's back. He's playing. And so, they've got Benjamin St-Juste, Marshawn Lattimore, and Mike Sanders still. And they're going to try to match up with the Eagles receivers. And obviously the Eagles receivers coming off a great game and the passing attack got going. And I'm curious to see how Washington is going to choose to play the Eagles, because last time they gave up 200 yards passing and 200 yards rushing. Are they going to try to lean into one of those more than the other? Do you try to stack the line of scrimmage and stop the run game like the Steelers did? And you're going to get lit up in the passing game. Do you try to play a little more balanced? I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I do know that they had a little bit of trouble throwing the ball at times against Washington several weeks ago. And the Washington defensive backfield is better now. So I'm interested to see what the encore looks like for the Eagles passing attack. Are we going to see them in empty a lot more? How are they going to attack this defense? That's my top matchup to watch. And I can't wait to see if the Eagles can build on that hot streak that they had passing and take some of the load off of Saquon Barkley if you want to try to load manage him a little bit. So that is my top matchup to watch. Anybody else have any other matchups they want to shout out before we get into our picks?
The Eagles versus the medical tent. Just freaking stay healthy, man. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, you're muted, man.
Oh, I didn't see.
So most of the yards came in the fourth quarter that you're discussing. I mean, they scored 20 of their 26 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was a very close game until the end. People forget about that just because of how exciting. I think it was 2 Saquon touchdown runs.
Yeah.
They hadn't done much up until that point. And like you said, Mike Sanders still, he was a dog against everybody. I mean, he was great.
Yeah. I was the Sanders still guy, but I was really impressed
Me too.
how he looked in that game.
Yeah, he was better than even advertised. Yeah, I think all three of us loved him during the draft process, but man, he was phenomenal in that game.
Yeah.
You know who my Mike Sammer still is this year, David? Jahdae Barron.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in love with that guy. I would draft him and just be like, it's a luxury pick. Just get him on the field.
So Commanders confirmed.
All right, well, let's get into our score predictions and our player of the game. Dibes, I'll throw it to you first. Give me your score prediction in this one.
Oh, let me get it. Hold on one second.
All right, while you're pulling that up, bonus matchup to watch. Washington Commanders fans versus their crappy stadium that they may or may not fall through. All right, go ahead, Dibes.
All right, I'm gonna go. My heart says the Eagles win by 2 scores, but my brain says this is going to be a close game, as these Washington Philly games tend to be. I am going to go a 1-score game. The Eagles get the W. They win 26-20, and Jalen Carter for my player of the game.
All right, David, what do you have?
I see it close as well. I went 25-13. Eagles win. And I'm going with Quinyon Mitchell as the player of the game because if he shuts down McLaurin again, I think he's deserving of that.
All right. Give me 24-21. Eagles win. I think division games are tough. Division road games are tough. Washington's got a lot to play for in this game. So I think the Eagles will win. I think it will be a tight game. It's going to feel more like the Panthers game than it's going to feel like the Steelers game, I think. And my player of the game, I'll go with Jalen Hurts.
All right.
So over under 45.5 points. That looks like it puts, Dibes is over. I'm under
38.
I am at 45. That's awesome. And David David's definitely on the under. Over under Brian Robinson rushing yards. The line is set at 49.5. Dibes.
So I hate going first with this one. Najee Harris had 14 yards. Give me under.
All right. David, what do you have?
I'm taking the over. It's just total yards, right? Or just rushing?
Rushing yards.
Yeah, I'll still do over.
I will also take the over. Wait, what did I say? Yeah, I took the over.
Over for Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I was confusing myself. I had my little note here, and I was like, wait, I was looking at the wrong line. Okay, Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels, higher completion percentage. I'll go first here. Give me Daniels. Jaden Daniels, they don't push the ball downfield very much, and the Eagles are going to do that a little bit more, so I think Daniels takes that one. David, what do you have?
I have Hurts.
All right. And Dibes, what about you? Who gets the higher completion percentage?
Just so you know, Daniels, last time he played the Eagles, had a completion percentage of 69%. I'm also going to go Hurts.
He's also been over 80%, I think, the last 2 games.
Yeah, that's why I went this.
Over under receptions from Zach Ertz at 1.5. Now, I do have a question. Zach Ertz sustained a concussion last week.
Oh, no.
So if he doesn't play, do we void this and not count it? Or do we have to factor that into our decision making?
Or we could
that changes my answer.
Why don't we just change the question then? Any other over-unders you want to do?
Well, no, we can leave it. I mean, because I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I say we just void it if he doesn't play. That's what a sportsbook would do on a prop like this. So if he doesn't play, it's voided. If he does play, over under 1.5 receptions, David.
If he actually plays, over. I just don't think he is, but
yeah. Okay. I will also take the over. If he plays, I don't know if he will or not, but if he does, I think he definitely hits the over. What about you, Dibes?
I'm going he's going to get 2 over. And by the way, we have a question about Jahan Dotson. He had one catch for 8 yards in the last game.
And he dropped one. He dropped a key third down conversion, if I recall correctly. Or no,
he was targeted.
Yeah.
He got the first throw of the game, and then after that drop, they just went away from him.
I got mad at Jahan Dotson watching the film this week because one of those plays that Hurts took a sack on, when I watched it live, I was like, he had Dotson on a drag route. He should have thrown it. And then you watch the all 22 and it's like Dotson never even looked at the quarterback. He's just like looking at the sideline running across the field. So yeah, I don't know about that one.
Looking at the last game, so much of this, when you're doing like Eagles content, like nearly every day, like it all meshes together. I totally forgot that McLaurin had just 2 more yards than Jahan Dotson in that game. That's crazy.
One catch for 10 yards.
One catch for 10. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of Terry McLaurin versus Devontae Smith. Who has more receptions, Dibes?
I got to go Devontae.
All right. Give me McLaurin. I think they will be a little smarter in how they deploy McLaurin this time. So, especially if I think Zach Ertz might not play. I don't know. He got to throw the ball to somebody. David.
Devontae.
All right. Over under 19.5 rushing attempts from Saquon. Give me the over. I'll tell you, I don't think it'll be over by a lot, but give me the over. In a game where he was banged up and the Eagles were firmly in control, he still had 19 carries last week. So, David, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm taking the over. He hasn't had less than 19 carries in the last 5 or 6 weeks.
All right. Dibes?
Give me the under.
All right. And then A.J. Brown receiving yards over under 99.5. Dibes?
Over. No one's no, it's got to be over.
All right. Give me the under. David?
I'm going with the under as well.
All right. So there you have it, guys. Those are our picks of the week. Our predictions, our preview of the Eagles' trip to FedEx Field. Krabby Oldman here says that he would have expected at least a 2-score difference in the final score, and I don't expect the Commies to score 3 touchdowns, probably not even 2. Here's the thing.
I agree.
I will never again pick the Eagles to win by double digits because every time I do it, they almost lose. So I'm just going to stick with the close games at this point. I picked him to win big against the Panthers. I don't remember who else I picked him to win big against this year, but it never happened. Brett Eclipse says over under a half of an identical Reed Blankenship game-sealing pick. Can you imagine? That'd be awesome. Great. So
you should make a video of like all 3 like happening at the same time. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to about do it for our recap of the Steelers game, our preview of the Commanders game. If you guys enjoy the show, please subscribe to the Eagles Pinpool Network. There's tons of content coming your way this week. My film show with Johnny is live. We're going to have a college football preview show that if you want to watch live, it's going to go live in like 15 minutes, but it'll show up on the podcast feed on Thursday. There's preview shows, there's recap shows, there's the check down, there's all kinds of content. So you guys check that out. Tell your family about it at Christmas. It's the reviews say it's the best Christmas gift you could give your family. So let them know about the podcast. Let's throw it around the horn here, Dibes. Tell the people where they can find you. Give them your final thoughts, all that stuff.
Final thoughts, just please stay healthy, man. None of those BS, what are those like hip tackles with A.J. Brown rolling his ankle or Saquon going to the medical tent. My heart cannot handle it. Just stay healthy, stay healthy, stay healthy. We are going live again to talk some Eagles targets. If you are into the college football playoff, there's a bunch of them this weekend, and we're just talking about the games this weekend. If you love Eagles, check out Party on Broad. I do daily Eagles content, and I just dropped several videos on the draft. My top 10 corners, wide receivers, edge rushers, and I'm probably missing one. They're there. Working on linebackers right now. Trying to get those done within the next couple of weeks as the holiday break wraps up. So go check it out.
All right. Be sure you're following along with all of Dibes' content. A lot of great stuff coming out there. David, how about you? Plug your stuff. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find everything I do at PHL Eagle News. I have a piece out now with 25 mind-blowing stats from the Eagles Steelers game. But tomorrow for Philly Sports Network and Metro Philly Paper, I'm releasing the true Santa Philadelphia story for the lazy, incorrect narrative that's been pushed around for 58 years or whatever it is. It has everything you'll ever want to know about what really happened, what should have happened. I'll give one thing in the piece that one of the reasons the fans were so angry that day is because the Eagles had lost their first 11 games, and had they had continued to lose, they would have had the first pick in the draft. But instead, they screwed that up, won 2 games, and instead of drafting O.J. Simpson, they drafted somebody named Leroy, who nobody ever knows again. So they were all happy to get O.J. Simpson, a running back savior, and they blew it. And also, the person behind them that they drafted turned out to be Mean Joe Green. So they got sandwiched between the 2 worst Hall of Famers. I mean, just unbelievable. Terrible, but check that out tomorrow at Philly Sports Network, Metro Philly. I'll have it on my PHL Eagle News as well.
All right. Be sure you check out David's stuff. Great written work. Glad we've got him on the podcast with us as well. You can also go harass Ryan at Philly Sports PSA. Point out that Kenny Gainwell had 123 all-purpose yards. Don't mention 63 of it was kick return yardage. That's not important, but we could have a good time with that. You can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHalfNFL. Johnny and I put our podcast out today. It's on the Pinpole Network. It's on the YouTube if you want to go watch it instead. My all 22 pass game review video will be out in the Patreon tomorrow. So if you're not a member of that, consider going and checking that out. That directly helps support mine and Johnny's work. And you can get a free 1-week trial and you can check out the video and figure out if it's worth sticking around for, but I think you'll like it. So that's going to do it. Thank you everybody for tuning in, except for Q, who said that Brian Baldinger is greater than me, even if it's true. Get out of here, Q. Everybody else, thank you for joining. Always fun hanging out with you guys on Tuesday nights. Next week's in flux with Tuesday night being Christmas Eve. It's a little up in the air if we're going to be able to get a Monday show in, or we might not be here next week. So if we're not here next week, I promise you it's not Q's fault. It's just Christmas, but we will definitely catch up with you guys after the holidays. If this is the last time we're on Birds of the Round Table for Christmas, though, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody and thanks for following along. Go Birds. Don't throw snowballs at Santa Claus. Don't give us that reputation again. And we'll catch you guys next time.